The invasion begins. The Krylaxian Empire had never known defeat. For 3 centuries, their crimson warships had carved through the galaxy like blades through silk, leaving behind smoking worlds and shattered civilizations. 47 star systems had fallen to their might, each conquest adding another jewel to Emperor Veshkaran's crown. The Krylaxians were not cruel by nature, but they were absolute in their belief that power determined right, and no species in the known galaxy possessed power enough to challenge them. High Commander Zethus stood aboard the flagship Dominator's Fist, his forearms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the holographic display before him. The blue-green world rotating slowly in the projection looked peaceful, almost inviting. Preliminary scans had revealed a planet rich in rare minerals, abundant water, and a single intelligent species that had barely achieved spaceflight. The inhabitants called their world Earth, and they numbered nearly 8 billion, spread across vast continents and islands. They possessed nuclear weapons, crude chemical rockets, and satellites that could barely reach their own moon. By Krylaxian standards, they were infants playing with fire. The War Council had deliberated for less than an hour before reaching their decision. Earth would be the 48th jewel in the Empire's collection. The humans would be given a simple choice: submit to Krylaxian rule and provide labor for the mining operations, or face extermination. It was the same choice offered to every species they encountered. Most chose survival. Those who chose resistance rarely lasted more than a planetary rotation. Zethus had personally overseen the preparation of the invasion fleet. 200 warships, each capable of glassing a continent from orbit. 50,000 ground troops, equipped with plasma weapons and powered armor that could withstand anything short of a direct nuclear strike. Support craft, siege engines, orbital bombardment platforms, everything needed to crush a primitive civilization and establish imperial control within days. The High Commander had conquered 12 worlds himself, and never needed more than a week to break a species' will to fight. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, their arrival timed to coincide with the planet's night cycle across its most populated hemisphere. Psychological warfare dictated that first contact should inspire maximum fear and confusion. The humans would wake to find alien ships filling their skies, and their governments would have no choice but to negotiate from a position of utter helplessness, except the humans were already waiting. The moment the Krylaxian fleet materialized near the orbit of the 8th planet, alarms shrieked across every ship's bridge. Sensors that had shown empty space moments before now detected thousands of contacts. Not ships, but weapons platforms. Vast networks of them arranged in geometric patterns that suggested careful planning and significant time investment. The platforms were cold, running on minimal power, which explained why long-range scans had missed them entirely. Zethus felt his chest plates tighten with surprise. The humans had known they were coming, but how? The Empire's approach had been undetectable, their hyperspace signatures masked by technology that even the advanced Urian collective couldn't match. Unless someone had warned them, but no, that was impossible. The Krylaxians had intercepted all communications leaving this sector for months. Before he could issue orders, the weapons platforms activated. They didn't fire energy beams or launch missiles as expected. Instead, they released what appeared to be simple projectiles, thousands of them, accelerating at impossible speeds using magnetic propulsion systems. The Krylaxians' shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb explosive force, did nothing against solid masses traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The first wave of projectiles struck 3 warships in the forward formation. The impacts released kinetic energy equivalent to nuclear detonations. Shields flickered and died. Armor plating, forged from materials that could withstand star-level temperatures, crumpled like thin metal foil. The 3 ships broke apart, their reactors breaching in cascades of white fire that briefly illuminated the darkness of space. Chaos erupted across the fleet. Commanders shouted orders, ships scattered from formation. Point defense systems came online, firing wildly at targets too fast and too numerous to track effectively. Another wave of projectiles arrived, then another. Each one precisely aimed, each one devastating. The humans weren't using advanced alien technology or mysterious energy weapons. They were using physics. Simple Newtonian mechanics applied with terrifying precision and overwhelming force. Zethus regained his composure and activated fleet-wide communications. His voice carried the authority of 3 centuries of conquest. All ships, coordinate defensive fire. Science Division, analyze those platforms and find their control centers. We destroy their ability to target us, then we proceed with the invasion as planned. But the weapons platforms weren't being controlled from a single location. Analysis revealed that each platform operated independently, using predictive algorithms to anticipate fleet movements. The humans had built redundancy into every system, creating a defensive network with no central point of failure. Destroying individual platforms achieved nothing when thousands remained operational. The fleet pushed forward, accepting losses they had never anticipated. 20 ships gone, then 30, then 45. They had barely crossed the orbital path of the seventh planet when Earth's moon suddenly lit up with activity. What the Krylaxians had assumed was a barren satellite revealed itself as a massive military installation. Launch bays opened across the lunar surface and ships began emerging, hundreds of them. These weren't crude chemical rockets or primitive exploration vessels. These were warships, sleek and angular, built with purpose and efficiency that spoke to a species intimately familiar with conflict. They moved with coordinated precision, forming defensive patterns that military strategists would recognize across any culture as expert-level tactical deployment. Zethus felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The humans had hidden their true capabilities behind a facade of primitive technology and innocent exploration. Every satellite the Krylaxians had observed, every public broadcast they had intercepted, every calculation about human society had been carefully curated misdirection. Earth wasn't a backwater civilization stumbling toward the stars. They were a species that had prepared for this exact scenario. The human fleet engaged at medium range, and their weapons proved disturbingly effective. They used a combination of technologies, some primitive by galactic standards but applied with innovative creativity. Railguns firing rounds that split mid-flight into scattershot patterns, overwhelming point defenses, missiles that didn't explode on impact but instead attached to hulls and drilled through armor before detonating internally, directed energy weapons that pulsed in frequencies specifically calibrated to disrupt Krylaxian shield harmonics. It became clear that the humans had studied them. Every Krylaxian engagement over the past century had been recorded, analyzed, dissected for weaknesses. The humans knew the exact recharge time for Krylaxian shields, the blind spots in their sensor arrays, the material composition of their armor plating. They fought not with superior technology but with superior information and the willingness to exploit every advantage ruthlessly. The battle raged for 6 hours. Zethus threw everything he had at the human defenses. But for every human ship destroyed, the Krylaxians lost 3. His forces were being systematically dismantled by an opponent that fought with cold calculation and absolutely no hesitation. There was no panic in human communications, no desperate last stands or emotional outbursts. They fought like machines, executing predetermined strategies with mechanical precision. When the Krylaxian fleet numbers dropped below 100 ships, Zethus made the decision no high commander had made in 3 centuries. He ordered a retreat. The surviving warships turned away from Earth, their engines burning at maximum output as they fled toward the hyperspace jump point. The human fleet pursued but didn't overextend, maintaining formation discipline even in what appeared to be victory. As the Dominator's fist prepared to jump to hyperspace, Zethus received a communication on all standard frequencies. It was audio only, delivered in perfect Krylaxian, language with an accent that suggested machine translation rather than natural speech. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Space Defense Force. You came to our world expecting easy conquest. You assumed our primitive appearance meant primitive thinking. You were wrong. We have watched the galaxy for longer than you know. We have studied your wars, learned your tactics, and prepared for the day when someone would decide Earth was worth taking. Today you learned what it costs to make that mistake. Return to your empire and deliver this message. Humanity claims no territory beyond our solar system. We seek no conflict with other species. But any force that enters our space with hostile intent will face the same fate you did today. We are not conquerors. We are survivors. And we are very, very good at it. The transmission ended. Zethus said nothing as his ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind 73% of the invasion fleet burning in the void. News of the defeat spread through galactic communication networks within hours. The Krylaxian Empire, undefeated for 3 centuries, had been shattered by a species most civilizations didn't even know existed. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the command center buried deep beneath the lunar surface, surrounded by officers who had trained their entire careers for this moment. Humanity had known for 50 years that first contact would likely be hostile. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and species didn't survive by being naive. Every resource, every innovation, every scientific breakthrough for half a century had been funneled into a single goal: ensuring that when the aliens came, Earth would be ready. The weapons platforms would remain active. The fleet would maintain readiness. And deep in research facilities across Earth and the Moon, scientists would analyze every piece of wreckage, every captured technology, every scrap of data from the battle. Because Chen knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't over. The Krylaxians would return, or someone else would come, drawn by curiosity or greed or the simple desire to test themselves against the species that had achieved the impossible. Humanity had won the first battle. But the war for Earth's future had only just begun, and the galaxy was watching with a mixture of horror and fascination as a new player entered the cosmic stage. The price of arrogance. Emperor Veshkaran's throne room fell silent as High Commander Zethus concluded his report. The assembled War Council, composed of the Empire's finest military minds and most decorated veterans, struggled to process what they had heard. 73% casualties against a species that had never left its own solar system. It was impossible, absurd, an insult to 3 centuries of Krylaxian military supremacy. The Emperor's voice carried the weight of absolute authority, though his tone suggested barely contained fury. You are telling me that 200 warships crewed by the finest warriors in the Empire were defeated by primitives who play with chemical rockets and worship invisible sky beings? Zethus kept his forearms rigid at his sides, his military bearing perfect despite the shame burning in his chest. The humans are not primitives, Imperial Majesty. They deliberately concealed their true capabilities. Every observation we made, every intelligence report we gathered was part of an elaborate deception. They wanted us to underestimate them. Then they succeeded brilliantly, hissed General Karvesh, her scales flushing dark purple with anger. The entire galaxy now questions our strength. 3 tributary species have already delayed their resource shipments, citing security concerns. The Urian Collective sent a diplomatic message suggesting we focus on internal matters. We are being mocked. The Emperor rose from his throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. There will be no mockery. We will return to Earth with 10 times the force, and we will reduce their world to ash. Let every species in the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the Empire. But Admiral Thorvex, oldest member of the War Council and veteran of 40 campaigns, raised one weathered hand. Imperial Majesty, I urge caution. The humans defeated our fleet not through superior technology, but through superior strategy. They studied us, learned our patterns, identified our weaknesses. If we attack again with conventional forces, they will simply adapt their defenses. We need to understand what we're truly facing. The debate raged for hours, but ultimately pride won over prudence. The Empire would gather a second invasion force, this one numbering 2,000 warships and including the Imperial Guard's most elite units. They would approach Earth with caution, yes, but they would approach and they would conquer. The alternative, accepting defeat and moving on, was unthinkable. 6 months later, the Second Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. This time they maintained maximum dispersion, using sensor drones to sweep ahead and identify hidden weapons platforms. They found thousands of them, more than before, arranged in layers of defensive coverage that extended from the outer planets all the way to Earth's moon. The humans had been busy. Fleet Commander Draxus, chosen personally by the Emperor to lead the second invasion, studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The humans hadn't just maintained their defenses, they had expanded them exponentially. More platforms, more ships, and intelligence suggested they had established manufacturing facilities on several moons throughout their solar system. In 6 months, they had built enough military hardware to outfit a major galactic power. The advance began cautiously. The fleet moved inward, destroying weapons platforms as they went, accepting the casualties as necessary cost. The humans didn't rush to engage, instead falling back in organized retreats that drew the Krylaxians deeper into the solar system. Draxus recognized the tactic, trading space for time, but he had numerical superiority and enough firepower to overcome any defensive position. Or so he believed. The human counterattack came near the orbit of Mars. Ships emerged from behind the red planet's moons, But these weren't the same vessels from the first battle. These were larger, heavier, equipped with weapons that gleamed with technologies the Krylaxians didn't recognize. The humans had reverse-engineered captured Krylaxian equipment and improved it, combining alien concepts with human innovation to create hybrid weapon systems that exceeded both originals. The battle quickly evolved into a nightmare. Human ships used guerrilla tactics, striking from unexpected angles, then disappearing behind asteroids or into the shadow of planets. They deployed mines that looked like space debris until Krylaxian ships came within proximity, then detonated with enough force to cripple even heavy cruisers. They hacked into Krylaxian communication networks, filling channels with false orders and corrupted data that caused friendly fire incidents and strategic confusion. Draxus tried to maintain formation cohesion, but the humans seemed to anticipate every move. His tactical algorithms, proven across dozens of campaigns, became predictable patterns that human commanders exploited ruthlessly. When he tried to adapt and introduce randomness into his maneuvers, the humans simply increased their own aggression, accepting higher casualties to maintain pressure on Krylaxian forces that couldn't coordinate effectively. The turning point came when human forces revealed their most devastating innovation. They called them hunter-killer drones, small autonomous craft no larger than escape pods that attached to Krylaxian ships like parasites. Once attached, they cut through hulls with industrial lasers, infiltrated critical systems, and either disabled ships from within or caused catastrophic reactor failures. The drones operated in swarms of thousands, too numerous to target individually, too small to waste main weapons on, and absolutely relentless in their programming. Watching his fleet being systematically torn apart by machines no bigger than cargo containers, Draxus finally understood the truth that should have been obvious from the beginning. Humans didn't fight like any species the Krylaxians had encountered before, because humans came from a world where they were not the apex predator. Earth was a death world by galactic standards, filled with creatures that possessed claws, fangs, venom, and natural weapons. Humans had survived by becoming the most dangerous predators of all, not through physical superiority but through intelligence, adaptability, and the willingness to use any tool, any tactic, any method that brought victory. The Second Fleet lasted 3 days before Draxus ordered the retreat. He had started with 2,000 ships and withdrew with less than 400. The humans pursued all the way to the hyperspace jump point, their weapon systems firing until the last possible moment, extracting maximum damage from an enemy in full flight. As the survivors jumped to hyperspace, Draxus received another transmission from Admiral Chen. The human's voice carried no triumph, no joy in victory, only cold statement of fact. You came back thinking numbers would make the difference. You were wrong again. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. Every ship you send, we will destroy. Every soldier you land, we will kill. Every resource you invest in conquering Earth is a resource wasted. We have analyzed your empire's economic capacity. You cannot sustain losses like this. We can. Our entire civilization is mobilized for war. Every factory, every research facility, every human citizen understands that our survival depends on making the cost of conquering us higher than anyone is willing to pay. Go home. Tell your emperor that Earth is not worth the price. The transmission ended, and Draxus knew with crushing certainty that Chen was right. The Empire could theoretically assemble enough forces to overwhelm Earth's defenses, but it would require committing resources from across all controlled territories. Tributary species would see the weakness and rebel. Rival powers would sense opportunity and attack. The cost of conquering one primitive world would be the destruction of an empire that had stood for 3 centuries. News of the second defeat spread through the galaxy even faster than the first. The Galactic Council, a loose association of neutral species that typically ignored military conflicts, called an emergency session to discuss the human question. Dozens of civilizations sent diplomatic envoys to Earth's solar system, broadcasting peaceful intentions and requesting dialogue. Everyone wanted to know more about the species that had humiliated the galaxy's dominant military power twice. The Krylaxian Empire withdrew all forces from human space and issued an imperial decree declaring Earth's solar system off-limits to all imperial vessels. Officially, they framed it as strategic repositioning. Unofficially, every species in the galaxy understood the truth. The undefeated conquerors had been defeated twice and had chosen survival over pride. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the United Nations Assembly, addressing representatives from every nation as they watched footage of the second battle. The victory had come at cost: 300 ships destroyed, 15,000 personnel killed, and resource expenditure that would take decades to fully recover from. But they had proven beyond doubt that Earth could defend itself. "We are not invincible," Chen told the assembly. "We are mortal, vulnerable, and we bleed when cut." But we learned something about ourselves in these battles. When faced with extinction, humanity doesn't break. We adapt, we innovate, and we fight with everything we have. The galaxy thought we were primitive because we hadn't conquered other worlds. They didn't understand that we never needed to. We spent our history conquering ourselves, overcoming our own divisions and differences to build a united civilization. That unity is our greatest weapon. The assembly voted unanimously to maintain military readiness while extending diplomatic relations to peaceful species. Earth would not seek empire or expansion, but neither would they ever again be caught unprepared. The weapons platforms would remain active. The shipyards would continue production, and every human child would grow up knowing that their species had faced the darkness of the galaxy and emerged victorious. In the years that followed, the Battle of Earth became legendary. Historians called it the moment when the galactic balance of power fundamentally shifted. The Crylaxian Empire never recovered its previous dominance, eventually fragmenting into smaller states as tributary species sensed weakness and rebelled. New alliances formed, often using Earth as a neutral mediator due to humanity's demonstrated strength and stated non-expansionist policy. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson. Never assume weakness based on appearance. Never underestimate a species that has survived on a world that actively tried to kill them for millions of years. And never ever make the mistake of attacking Earth. Because humanity had shown the true price of arrogance, and the galaxy watched in horror as the cost was paid in burning ships and shattered pride.